What is going on, everybody? I am back. 2 weeks of leave, sailing on the ocean blue with some good friends. Had a wonderful time. The batteries are recharged, and I'm back here for you. And the first video, of course, you knew it, is going to be all about Halo. I'm going to be talking about the first episode, and only the first episode, of Halo Season 2. It's finally here. I took a lot of notes during and after, and I did rewatch some of it. And I also did watch the Unclassified. It's about a 15-minute YouTube show. They talk a little bit more about kind of the making of the show. So this is kind of an encompassing review of everything Season 1. I am a Halo Superfan if you're new to the channel. I love, eat, breathe, sleep Halo. So I'm so excited to see this show. And this show was made for guys like me who love the lore and love the universe and love everything about what this game is and what this TV show could be. It's not perfect, of course. I was definitely not entirely in love with Season 1, but if you missed any of my thoughts on those episodes, there's a playlist you can go back and watch if you want a quick recap of where we are. I'm not going to go through everything in Season 1, but I will say that Season 2 definitely picks up with a soft reboot, which is something that we were all hoping would happen. Most great television shows do tend to take a couple seasons to get their footing, and unfortunately, Halo is no different. So a lot of the story beats and a lot of the threads in Season 1 have just dropped, and I'm totally fine with that. But they did it in a very, very quick way where they briefly mentioned something for like a word or a sentence, and then they were done. So what did we lose going into Season 2? Well, the big one is that Cortana is currently not in the picture. Recall that at the end of Season 1, she takes over John and becomes the most effective fighting unit in the world. John saves the day. Ta-da! In the last scene of Season 1, he's flying off into the sunset with his helmet on, which of course everybody loved, but not talking, and he's gone mute. And it's because Cortana has basically kicked him out of his own conscious, and he is not a human anymore. He is a hybrid machine of war. Well, if you didn't like that storyline, fear not. We find out in about 3 seconds in the beginning of the episode that Cortana was ripped out of John and is seemingly gone. So goodbye, Cortana. Now we know, of course, Cortana's story is not over, and she does get some mentions later on in the episode. But the idea of Cortana taking over John is long gone. So he's just back to being himself. Speaking of Spartans in general, they are all now human. They have personalities, which is something that was really, really annoying as a fan of the extended universe, mostly in lore and comic books, that you didn't really get to see too much in the show because they were all these kind of mindless robots in the first season, and then they removed this emotional inhibitor chip, and then they sprung to life. Some of them embraced new emotions like love, maybe a little bit too much. Looking at you, Master Cheeks. Of course, you had other ones get a little nervous during combat or scared or show remorse, which does add to the idea that these soldiers aren't perfect. Obviously, they were more effective when they were mindless killing machines, but as far as television and entertainment's concerned, them having personalities is much better. And we see it right away with Vanek talking about how he watches documentaries about programs of animals and how he likes that, and it's something he finds enjoying, which is great to see that we are starting to get some of that. So now the Spartans have gone through the removal of the emotion chip, and they're all just dudes. They have feelings, they have thoughts, they have desires, and that's great. And that was something that was really stupid in the first season that they fixed very, very rapidly. And the last one, and the one that probably most people jumped for joy over, I know I did, was the destruction of Madrigal. Yes, very early on we find out that Kwan's home planet, the dopey, boring Madrigal, which was perfect for exactly one scene at the opening of the first episode of Season 1 with that epic boss fight where we were finally introduced to Silver Team. That planet's gone. So all the drama over who's in charge and who's the president and who's the leader and what clans and faction, it doesn't matter anymore. It's been totally obliterated. Sorry, Kwan. Now, she does have an appearance later in the show. We'll talk about her in a moment. But that was what was kind of eliminated leading up to in the first 10 minutes of the show, which was great. So already big smile on my face. A lot of stuff has already been fixed. Again, it's not perfect, but it's a great start. So they talk about this in the Halo documentary on YouTube afterwards, the unclassified show, that they brought in a new creative team, and it shows. I mean, we just talked about all the wonderful things that have changed, but they talk about how there's a new writer, there's a new props department, and while they don't explicitly mention set design, based on what I saw, I'm going to believe that the set design has changed as well, which is great. So I can't confirm that all this is true about the set design, but definitely the other two things are. So that's good. There's a lot of Halo Infinite being injected into the game. We've obviously seen crossovers. Big shout out to you, Kev Dog, for doing my Halo Infinite dailies while I was gone. We've seen a lot of crossover from the television show into the game, being able to pick up the helmets now of Silver Team, but we're actually seeing it go the other way. We saw the BR-75, the new kind of Halo Infinite variety of that. We saw the MA-40. Did you know, I was looking this up on my notes, it is actually the MA-40 Individual Combat Weapons System, also known as the IWCS. Most of us just call it the AR because it is an assault rifle. But that Halo Infinite variant is actually the one that Master Chief does use. The needler looks like it has changed from the promotional material, and they do talk about that as well in the kind of making of at the end. And it looks like when Chief was fighting one of those cloaked Covenant, did he pull out a sidekick? So maybe we're getting a sidekick as well. But a massive injection of Halo Infinite stuff. And of course, he can't climb the mountain without the grappling hook. The grappling hook makes its appearance in the television show as well. And as soon as he pulled it out, my wife and I were like, yes, we need more grappling hook, and we got it. So you get the grappling hook as well, and that's phenomenal. So lots and lots of injection and new ideas and new set design and new props and a new kind of streamlined story. Hopefully, I don't know, we're still getting through this, right? But definitely at least weeding out the fat that we did not want to see. So I'm very happy for that. And based on that alone, I think season 2 is going to be a lot better. Now, a couple of things I want to touch on specifically in this episode. We are introduced to James Ackerson. Now, I don't know if he's got the rank of colonel in this or not, but in the books, he is Colonel Ackerson, and he is the Spartan 3 guy. So you're going to see a theme throughout this entire show that obviously they did touch on it, that the UNSC is not doing well. There's a lot of false hope and pride and hubris, which will ultimately lead to Reach's downfall. We know that. But what you're not really seeing is that they're already plotting behind the scenes because they know that as effective as the Spartan 2s are, they will not win the war alone. They need to buy more time to build up their fleet. They were not ready for this engagement from the Covenant. So in the books, Colonel Ackerson is the behind the scenes. He kind of goes behind everyone's back, and he builds up this Spartan 3 program, which consists of child soldiers, much like in the Spartan 2 program. The difference here is he finds orphans, which is insanely messed up. So, hey, little kid, your dad died. We're going to inject you with steroids. You're going to be a 6-year-old war machine. And the mortality rate of the Spartan 3 program was like 3% or something. As a matter of fact, I can only name like 3 or 4 Spartan 3s, Tom and Lucy for sure, and a couple other small ones that like trickle their way out. But for the most part, Spartan 3s were this child soldier group that was sent out to die, which is really messed up. And he's behind that. He's definitely a weasel, this Ackerson. He's the actor playing him does a phenomenal job of being your friend, me. And I love his interaction with Chief. I'm curious to see how that evolves, especially now that we know that Admiral Parangoski is floating around behind the scenes, trying to get her old job back. It's it's kind of implied that Ackerson has taken over. We hear him say that he's the boss now, but he never got the rank of admiral. They never refer to him as an admiral. Clearly, Admiral Hood respects him, and I can't imagine a colonel would take over for an admiral. That doesn't make sense, but it's just a Silver Universe thing. Needless to say, Ackerson is the new guy. He's the new Halsey. He's apparently the new head of ONI. I hope they clear that up as time goes on. And as an aside, let's get this straight. It's ONI. It's not ONI. It's ONI. It's always been ONI as long as I can remember, as long as I've ever heard anybody ever mention ONI. For some reason in this show, they're starting to inject the phrase ONI. And I'm like, don't use the letters. Use the phrase as a word. And that annoyed me to no end. But again, super fan problems, right? We also briefly meet the Cobalt team, which is awesome. So I couldn't tell what that was, but when they're all sitting in that round table, there's a board above their head, and it's got all the different fire teams and their current missions. We know the Silver team has been sidelined now because Ackerson doesn't trust John. He thinks that the report that John gave him when these mythical Spartans vanished into the mist, and who was that? Who was that shadowy figure who pulled them away? We don't quite know yet, but he's been sidelined. But you have all of these other teams, and we get to meet the Cobalt team very briefly. It's awesome. I love it. I want to see more Spartan teams. I don't want this show to be focused solely around John Halo. As much as I love John Halo, he's my guy, right? I want to see the extended universe. The fact that they're kind of trickling in some of the new cast is great. And I hope to see more of Cobalt, although I suspect, and again, I've only watched the first episode, I don't think they're going to make it back. Or if they do, it's going to be a lot worse. But it would be better if they didn't make it back, because it would kind of lead into John's theory that, like, hey, there's a problem here. And the Covenant really are training in preparation for an assault, which is going to hit the fan here very, very quick. As an aside to that, will we see Noble 6? That's the question. All right. Sorry. Fanboying out. So what do we not have? Well, we don't have Halsey in this episode, but we do have Kwan. Kwan makes an appearance. The magical voiceover at the end. Now her mission is this Forerunner portal, which was teased briefly at the end of season 1, episode 7, where she talks about how her true calling is to find and protect this portal. She talks a lot about the monsters in the dark. I don't know what she's referring to. That is so vague. If she's talking about this flood, that would be insane, but I can't imagine this show has enough thought to even start thinking of a season 3 flood. But hey, if they did, that'd be cool. We do get a lot of Soren as well. And Soren is really kind of taking the forefront. I didn't do like the time. I'm not into that. Like, okay, when is he on camera? When is he off camera? But Soren had a lot to do in this episode. His hatred for Catherine Halsey is what is going to, at least right now, seem to be his demise. It's clear that the Rubble, who is this federation of planets, which is kind of out in the fringe space, doing their own thing, it's clear that they can't hide from the problems anymore. And I think that is a phenomenal way to kind of wrap this up and talk about the overall theme right now, is that everybody needs to come to understand that this isn't going away. The problem with the Covenant is real. And despite Ackerson and some of the other kind of political machine trying to say, hey, everything's fine, don't worry about it. Well, we know the fall of Reach. It's a very, very, very well-documented thing. It was very clear that they're going in this direction. This is almost like a Shakespearean play where you're watching the tragedy unfold in parts, where everybody seemingly thinks they're okay. I mean, look at Soren at the beginning, walking down the aisle, big man on campus. He's got his wife and his kid in his little private house, and aren't we good-looking dudes, and giving each other high fives. And then at the end of the episode, he's kidnapped, betrayed by his team. I don't know. I'm not really entirely sure. Clearly, there's more that we need to find out, but kind of, captured and removed from that. Now his family may have lost their power as well. You have the UNSC obviously dealing with a lot of problems. Planets are just getting glassed left and right, front and center. Their star soldier is seemingly having mental issues. Cortana is AWOL. Halsey is AWOL. And they're all like, hey, we're fine. We're going to throw a parade. Everything's fine here. We triumphantly, Private, I don't know what her name was, Corporal, whatever her name was, she triumphantly saved the day. Well, Not really. We know what happened, but you get the point. I think she shot like 2 shotgun shells though, and that shotgun model was great, which is exactly why we need it back in Halo Infinite. I love the Bulldog, but I love my single pump shotgun back. Please. All right, so talked a lot here today. I want to say I hope I did a good job covering the high points. I'll be back probably tomorrow with a full review of season 2, episode 2. We'll talk a little bit more about that then, but I mostly wanted to get in front of the camera. I wanted to spend time on this. This is my show, guys, okay? This is like what I live for. Like the culmination of all those comic books and all the stuff on the ground and all the stuff on the walls is my life, is Halo. And I'm so happy that the show is back, and it seems like they've course corrected better than they did in the first season. And that's all I can hope for. That's all I can hope for. I'm not asking for a perfect show. And we'll see what happens if there is a season 3. But for now, I'm going to enjoy the ride. I know we got 6 or 7 or however many episodes the season is to get through. And I'll be back later on with the next one. That's it for right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.